Okay. I think I know what to do, Sugar Cube. Let me take it from here, AJ said soothingly as she could, deciding not to point out how her friend's anger was almost as bad as hers. But it still felt like a giant burden being lifted off Twilight's shoulders as the unicorn passed the controller back to her friend. Watching Applejack play this particular part of the level gave Twilight some sudden insight. Applejack had immediately hit a button that made her character break out into a gallop the moment she moved, in contrast to Twilight's slow and cautious peeking out from behind cover. In this case, however, it proved to be what saved her. Applejack's galloping had her moving fast enough that she was leaving the green blasts of energy in her wake, and by the time that she got to the next floor, they managed to get a look at what had managed to kill Twilight several times over. It was a gold-armored alien, brandishing a weapon about just as large as a pony on its shoulder. "Get him, AJ, get him!" Rainbow Dash yelled excitedly as Applejack charged her character forward, firing her weapon madly. However, instead of returning fire, the alien instead ran away in a surprising burst of speed, disappearing around the corner and sending Applejack's fire flying wide. "Concern it, I almost had him!" The orange-haired pony swore, sent her character sprinting forward again in an attempt to catch up, only to find herself losing control of her endgame character as what appeared to be nothing more than a shimmer wrenched her character backwards and drove two small shimmering blades deep into its spine. "What the hey?" Applejack exploded. "Where in a question did that dagnabber come from?" At the very moment that the game responded, Applejack began recklessly charging again, sprinting forward, and only to find the very same shimmer appeared in front of her, cutting down in a barrage of bright bolts that sent her character crumpling to the floor, dead once again. "Oh, come on, I can't even see the darn fella. How am I supposed to fight him?" A soft, polite cough from behind her shook her out of her concentration, and Applejack glanced over at Rarity, who had her hoof extended politely. "If I may, Applejack, I think I may be able to help you with this. No offense to your wit, but I spotted those shimmers long before they even got close to you. I just thought you might have seen them as well, so I didn't think to point them out." Applejack gave the white unicorn an almost skeptical glance, almost hesitating to hand the controller over. Rarity? Getting her hooves dirty with this sort of thing? It's quite a laughable notion. Still, she knew her friend had an eye for detail that any pony else in the room could not even hope to match. Perhaps she could get her help to pass this apparently insurmountable obstacle. "All right, Rarity, you got an eye for detail, so maybe you can help us get this past here, this part." Blah. Applejack handed her the controller, and Rarity accepted it with her usual poise and grace, turning to face the screen with the same kind of focused expression that she always wore whenever she was doing extremely delicate work on her dress designs.
"It is on."
That meant myself. What happened next made almost every pony assembled have their jaw drop in utter amazement. It seemed as though Rarity was blessed with a form of precognition that allowed her to know just where the shimmers would appear before even any pony could begin to try spotting their presence. The white unicorn would turn to face what would look like an empty patch on the screen devoid of enemies, before letting loose with a barrage of fire that was to be rewarded with the crumpled corpse of a gray armored alien. Not one of them even managed to come within 5 feet of her character before being mowed down mercilessly by Rarity's keen eyes and ensuing hail of bullets. "Well, I do believe that's all of them," the white unicorn proudly proclaimed as her character cut down what seemed to be the last of the hidden aliens, and she handed the controller back to a slack-jawed Applejack, giggling. "Oh, really, Applejack? Do close your mouth. You'll attract flies like that. Oh, wait, there's one more." Before any pony could react, Rarity snapped her character's targeting cursor just a teensy bit to the right and let a blast out from her weapon. There was a cry of pain as another one of the invisible aliens abruptly materialized in a crumpled heap at her avatar's feet. "There, now that's the last of them." As she offered the controller back to her friend, Rarity couldn't help but let out a giggle as Applejack continuously blurted gibberish as she attempted to fix her jaw back in place. "I don't even know how y'all did that, Rarity, but I'm not about to ask," she muttered, finally working her jaw back into place and unexpectedly pushing the controller back to Rarity. "I'm mighty impressed with how you got past those fellas. I'd like to see how you play the rest of this here level." Looking nervously at the controller she was being offered, Rarity gave an apprehensive grin and a giggle. "I don't know, Applejack, but if you insist."
Let me take over here. White Unicorn's progress on the rest of the level was a visual spectacle to watch, at least on screen. Rarity's expression of intense focus only seemed to deepen with every failed attempt she made, a stark contrast to what happened with Twilight and Applejack's increasingly frayed nerves. The next blow that her character ascended to had her facing the gold-armored alien that had killed Twilight so many times over. But this time it had its back to a sheer drop where the floor ended in blasted wreckage, and it was flanked on both sides by several of its more diminutive subordinates. The ensuing chaos was spectacular. Brightly glowing orbs and green blasts of energy flew left and right with Rarity right in the thick of it. Yet with impossible skill and grace, she avoided each and every one of them, practically threading the needle with every maneuver. As expected of her, the white unicorn ended off with a grand flourish hurling of what the gang call a plasma grenade at the gold-armored alien. The brightly glowing sphere landed directly on the alien's helmet, where it immediately latched on with a loud beep and steadily growing whine. The alien immediately stopped in its track, landing on a loud roar of panic right before a second plasma grenade landed right next to the first. Upon seeing this, Rainbow Dash immediately erupted in laughter right before the alien vanished in a huge blue-white explosion that finally signified that the end of the level. "Oh man, did you see that alien?" the Rainbow Mane Pegasus howled in laughter, practically on the floor in stitches. "I could practically hear him squeal. Oh man, this is the best game ever." I must admit, Twilight, this game device that Princess Trollestia sent you is quite possibly the most fun I have had in a very long time, Rarity said. "Yeah, a long time," Rarity said, an excited smile stretching from ear to ear across her face. "Glad to know you guys are having fun with this. I'll have to remember to include in my report to the troll," remarked Twilight, already making the mental notes in her head on what exactly to write in her regular letters to her mentor. "Hey, wait a minute. We still got one more pony here. Wait, give it a try yet," Applejack suddenly said. "Fluttershy here ain't even in so much as touched the controller." Oh no, it's quite alright, everyone. I don't really," the big Pegasus murmured shyly as every pair of the eyes in the room turned to look at her, squeaking a little bit under her friends' combined gazes. "I mean, it's just that—" "Oh, come on, Fluttershy," Pinkie Pie said encouragingly as she gently nudged her friend from behind, prompting her help to pick up the controller. "Just give it a try. Remember the hop, skip, and a jump? It's just as easy." "Yeah, come on, Fluttershy," Rainbow Dash said with a grin. "Obviously wanted to see this too. I want to see how you handle it." "Well, alright then. I suppose I can give it a shot," Rarity murmured quietly as she meekly took up the controller in her hooves, giving the screen a look of quiet uncertainty. The next level was already underway as her character's avatar was climbing along the rocky cliffside with another armored pony, the night sky casting a foreboding veil of darkness over the two. Moments later, after exchanging a few words, two armored ponies had split up and Fluttershy's avatar had leapt down a cliffside, descending in a controlled slide down the rocks, while her companion stayed on top of the cliff overlooking the area. Just as her character reached the end of the slide down the cliff face, control was returned to her, and Fluttershy almost immediately began moving. Unlike Applejack's reckless charging forward or Pinkie Pie's random jumping, Fluttershy lowered her character into a low crouch, sneaking forward quietly in an attempt to draw as little attention to herself as possible. Just as she had taken a few steps forward, the voice of her character's companion suddenly came on over the speakers, his voice muffled by the distinctive crackle of speakers. "Elite spotted up ahead. Take her out quietly." The excitement and tension in the room was almost tangible. Nearly every pony held their breath as they watched Fluttershy creep up the grassy knoll. The silhouette of an armored alien is similar to the ones Rarity had killed in such numbers in a level before appearing in the moonlight. Can you continue, Mr. Ben?
Sure. Just as Fluttershy's avatar was right behind the alien, the camera abruptly shifted to a third-person view as the armored pony suddenly pounced upon the alien, driving a large serrated knife right into its collarbone before viciously yanking it out in a crude gutting motion, sending gouts of purplish blood spurting into the air. The alien fell to the ground silently, and the gathered ponies stared wide-eyed before turning to look at Fluttershy, who had an equally shocked expression on her face. I didn't know that would happen, I swear," squeaked the yellow Pegasus. having dropped the controller in horror, apparently mortified by what she had just done. I read the manual and it said the right bumper was for melee attacks, so maybe I could just quietly put him to sleep from behind, but I wasn't intending to kill him. Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash began slowly, a grin beginning to form on her face. I had no idea we could even do that, but you just made this whole experience 20% cooler for me. Really? Fluttershy said hopefully, eliciting an excited nod from Rainbow Dash. Go on, keep playing. I want to see how this turns out. Well, alright, if that's what you want, Dash, said the yellow Pegasus, slowly plaking up the controller once again. As her movements grew surer and steadier by the minute, her friends gradually edged closer and closer towards the screen, staring transfixed as Fluttershy continued to move her character throughout the level. Soon enough, they came to a point where her avatar was on the edge of a cliff, overlooking a small clearing where the several enemies the game referred to as grunts were obviously taking a nap, while a few more were idly strolling about. Her avatar had already had its sniper rifle out, and they watched as Fluttershy slowly moved her admittedly tiny aiming cursor to rest on one of the aliens who was idly strolling about. Rainbow Dash squinted skeptically at the screen, quite unable to understand how they expected Fluttershy to hit anything with an aiming cursor that small. Surely there was some way they could make either the targets or the cursor larger, right? The rifle that Fluttershy's character held had something mounted on it that looked like some sort of a telescope. Maybe she could zoom in or something. Yet before Rainbow Dash could even open her mouth to make said suggestion, the impossible happened right before her very eyes. In an unnatural display of speed, precision, and coordination, Fluttershy twitched her character's reticle about in 4 abrupt jerks, firing her sniper rifle in rapid succession until the magazine clicked empty. 4 times she fired her sniper rifle without zooming in with her scope, and 4 times she scored perfect headshots as 4 alien bodies slumped dead against the ground.
Damn.
Nice.
Damn.
There were the sounds of 3 sets of jaws hitting the floor in rapid succession.
Ding, ding, ding.
Twilight Sparkle, Applejack, and Rainbow Dash could only watch as their mouths agape as Fluttershy's character reloaded the sniper rifle, then fired 4 more times, scoring yet another 4 unbelievably accurate headshots in record time without even once using the rifle's scope.
That's why she is awesome.
What? How? But I can't... Rainbow Dash could only incoherently sputter, unable to believe what she had just witnessed. Sweet mother of mercy, gawked Applejack, completely slack-jawed once again by Fluttershy's mind-blowing display of skill. As for Twilight, the lavender unicorn was staring at her normally timid friend, only to find an expression that was frighteningly similar to the stare plastered on her face, the full force of it directed right at the television screen. Even as they watched, Fluttershy proceeded to breeze through the rest of the level, performing flawless headshots on every enemy she came across. Even when her sniper rifle ran out of bullets, she simply switched to her character's standard pistol and continued executing headshots like they were as easy as second nature. Even if they had energy shields like the large armored aliens carried, she always managed to disable them with perfectly placed grenades or barrages of plasma fire before executing them with a flawless slug to the skull. All in all, it was like watching a machine play, and within 10 minutes, barring cutscenes, she had cleared the entire level without dying a single time.
That's why she's so awesome.
Twilight was so completely bowled over by what she had just seen that she could barely even form a coherent sentence. Fluttershy, how in Equestria are you doing that? Not taking her eyes off the screen for even a moment, Fluttershy took a slow and deep breath, preparing herself for a long tirade of words ahead. Well, first off, it's easy to see the enemy formations are structured in a rather rudimentary fashion. Seeing as the smaller ones provide support for the larger command unit, it's plainly obvious that if you remove the leader from the equation first, everything else will more or less be easier to deal with. Secondly, it's obvious the trajectory of each bullet varies only slightly with each shot if you're using this particular weapon. So with minor directional adjustments, it's a simple matter to deal at maximum damage in record time. Last off, if you look carefully, each enemy moves in a rather predictable fashion. They usually move forwards in a direct charge, but if they decide to move from side to side, it's a simple matter of anticipating movement and adjusting your character's orientation for maximum effect. A sudden realization of what she had just said dawning upon her, Fluttershy quickly hit the start button to pause the game and sheepishly stare at her friends. I mean, It's as good as any pony's guess, really.